Song Hye-kyo's face right now is telling us everything we need to know, and I am absolutely not okay about what just happened. Stop what you are doing, because the footage and photos coming out of this awards night showing Lee Minho completely unable to stop looking at his wife are the most beautiful thing you are going to witness all year. We are talking about a man who has attended hundreds of glamorous industry events across a decades-long career, a man who has shared rooms with the most celebrated names in Korean entertainment, a man who has stood on more stages and walked more red carpets than most people can count, and at this awards night he could not keep his eyes off his wife. The way he looked at her. The specific quality of attention he kept directing at Song Hye-kyo across that room. The genuine, unmanaged sweetness radiating from his face every single time his gaze found her. It is breaking hearts and restoring faith in love simultaneously. This is not a celebrity performing affection for cameras. This is a man completely gone for his wife in a room full of people and unable to do anything about it. Stay until the very end, because the specific moment his expression caught on camera will absolutely undo you. Before we get into every detail, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications, because this story keeps getting more beautiful. Now let us talk about what happened at this awards night and why Lee Minho looking at Song Hye-kyo is the most significant footage the Minho community has received all year. Song Hye-kyo walked into that awards venue and the room changed. This is not poetic exaggeration, and it is not the kind of fan-colored observation that requires a certain bias to perceive. Multiple accounts from people present at the event, people with no particular stake in the Minho narrative and no reason to construct a romantic reading of the evening, have described the same thing independently. There was a shift in the atmosphere of the room when Song Hye-kyo arrived. The particular shift that happens when someone whose presence carries genuine weight enters a space, and the space responds to them before anyone has consciously decided to respond. She was dressed in a way that was entirely consistent with her personal aesthetic, which is to say she was dressed in a way that looked effortless and turned out to be devastating. The specific quality of beauty that Song Hye-kyo brings to formal occasions has been documented across 2 decades of industry appearances, and it has not diminished by a single degree. If anything, and this is the observation that keeps surfacing in accounts of this specific evening, it has deepened. There is a quality to how she carries herself now, in this season of her life, that was not present in the same form in earlier years. Settledness, fullness, the specific beauty of a woman who is living inside a happiness she actually possesses rather than performing a version of it for professional purposes. She walked into that room carrying all of that. And Lee Minho, across the space of the venue, turned and found her. What happened in his face in that moment is the image that launched 1,000 comment sections and has kept the Minho community in sustained emotional conversation since the evening ended. He was mid-conversation when she arrived. Standing with a group of industry colleagues in the professional social configuration of awards night gatherings, engaged in the kind of warm collegial exchange that these events generate, present and attentive in the gracious way that his years of navigating high-profile industry spaces have made second nature. He was entirely in the moment of that conversation. And then Song Hye-kyo walked through the entrance, and something in him simply relocated. His head turned. Not the polite social turn of someone registering a new arrival in a room. The involuntary, full-attention turn of someone whose awareness has been captured by something that supersedes whatever was occupying it before. He turned and he found her, and his face did something that the people positioned to observe it have struggled to describe adequately, because adequate description requires language for the specific quality of involuntary feeling that surfaces on a person's face when the person they love most walks into a room, and they are not prepared for how beautiful they are going to look. The smile that arrived was not his public smile. This distinction is critical, and it is the distinction that every person in the Minho community who has spent years studying Lee Minho's face across its various registers of public expression has immediately identified as the most significant detail of the entire evening. Lee Minho's public smile is well documented and genuinely warm and entirely authentic within its register. It is the smile of a man who is professionally gracious and personally charming, and who genuinely likes the people he is with and allows that genuine liking to be visible in his expression. It is a beautiful smile. It has launched 1,000 fan edits and stopped a significant portion of the viewing public across Asia in their tracks across many years of drama and film and public appearance footage. The smile that appeared on his face when Song Hye-kyo walked into that awards venue was not that smile. It was smaller, which is paradoxically what made it larger in terms of its emotional content. It was the smile that arrives before a person has decided to smile, before the conscious decision has been made that smiling is appropriate or manageable or something that the current public context can accommodate. It arrived ahead of his awareness of it. It arrived because Song Hye-kyo walked through the door and something in Lee Minho responded to that fact at a level below conscious management, and the response surfaced on his face as the specific kind of private, involuntary, entirely unperformed smile that belongs to the category of things that cannot be faked because they preempt the system that would do the faking. Someone with a camera was pointed in exactly the right direction at exactly the right moment. The footage exists, and the Minho community has been watching it on repeat since it surfaced. Let us examine what happened next, because the initial turn and the involuntary smile are only the opening movement of an evening that generated its own sustained documentary evidence of how Lee Minho relates to his wife in shared public spaces. What the footage and the photographs and the accounts from people present at the event collectively describe is an entire evening in which Lee Minho's attention kept returning to Song Hye-kyo with the specific regularity of something that was not being consciously directed but was simply responding to its own gravity. He would be in conversation and his eyes would drift. He would be on stage during a presentation, and the fraction of his attention not required by the professional demands of the moment would locate her in the room. He would be photographed with colleagues in the standard industry documentation of these events, and the lean of his body, the subtle directional orientation of his physical presence, would be toward wherever she was standing even when she was not in the frame. The Minho community has a concept for this that has been in circulation for some time and that this evening provided its most extensive documented evidence for yet. The concept is gravitational. The idea that Song Hye-kyo functions as a kind of gravitational center for Lee Minho's attention in shared spaces, that his awareness of where she is operates as a continuous background process that surfaces regularly and inevitably in the directional orientation of his gaze and his body regardless of what else is claiming his conscious attention. Previous evidence for this concept has existed in fragments, in individual glances caught in individual photographs, in the observable lean of his posture in images where they are in the same frame, in the specific quality of redirected attention documented in earlier event footage. This awards night provided not fragments but a sustained, multi-hour, extensively documented demonstration of the concept in full operation. The most significant captured moment of the evening, the one that has generated the deepest and most emotionally detailed community response, came approximately midway through the event during a segment where Lee Minho was seated in the audience rather than required on stage. He was therefore free, to the degree that anyone at a high-profile industry event is ever entirely free, from the professional performance demands that typically occupy his attention and management resources at these gatherings. And what he did with that relative freedom is what has destroyed the Minho community in the most joyful possible way. He watched her, not with the covert, managed quality of someone trying to observe their partner without being observed doing the observing, not with the performance of casual audience awareness that public people develop when they need their attention to appear unfocused while actually being specifically directed. He watched her with the straightforward, unashamed, entirely undisguised attention of a man who finds his wife fascinating and has temporarily stopped caring whether the people around him notice that this is what his face is doing. Song Hye-kyo was engaged in conversation with someone nearby, animated and present in the specific way she is when a conversation has caught her genuine interest, and Lee Minho was watching that conversation happen on her face the way you watch something that gives you pleasure to look at when you are fortunate enough to have an uninterrupted opportunity to look at it. The expression he was wearing during this watching has been the subject of the most extended and most emotionally intelligent fan analysis this channel has seen in a long time, and the analysis keeps arriving at the same description from multiple directions. He looked like a man who is aware that he is lucky. Not lucky in the abstract sense of someone performing gratitude for a good fortune they take for granted in practice. Lucky in the active, present, continuously renewed sense of someone who looks at their life and specifically at the person their life contains and feels the luckiness in real time, as a current and immediate and somewhat astonishing fact rather than as a background condition they have grown accustomed to. Lee Minho watching Song Hye-kyo at that awards night looked like a man to whom the reality of being married to her had not yet, after however much time they have been building their life together, become entirely ordinary. Like someone who keeps being surprised by their own fortune in a way that never quite resolves into the settled, taken-for-granted comfort of the completely familiar. Song Hye-kyo's awareness of being watched, or more precisely the specific moments when her awareness of being watched by Lee Minho specifically surfaced in her own expression, is the other narrative thread of this evening, and it is one that has generated its own sustained and enthusiastic fan response. There were moments across the evening when she turned toward him, when her attention shifted from whatever was occupying it to the direction where Lee Minho was, with a specific quality of someone who can feel a gaze on them and has turned to confirm the source. And in those moments of turning and confirming, something happened in her face that is its own kind of documentary evidence of the Minho dynamic. She looked pleased. Not pleased in the social sense of someone who has registered a compliment and is producing the appropriate gracious acknowledgement of it. Pleased in the private sense of someone who has caught their husband looking at them in a room full of people with an expression of unconcealed adoration, and has had a feeling about it that belongs entirely to them. There is a quality in the footage of Song Hye-kyo registering Lee Minho's gaze that the community has identified, with the careful precision of people who have been learning the specific languages of her face for years, as the expression of a woman who is seen by the person whose seeing matters most and who knows it and is quietly, privately, in a way that requires no audience and requests no witness, glad. The interplay between those two experiences, his watching and her knowing she is being watched and his knowing that she knows, constitutes what fans have been calling the most complete documented Minho exchange of any public event in recent memory. 'Cause it is a full circuit. It is not the one-directional devotion of a man looking at a woman across a room without her knowledge or reciprocation. It is the closed loop of two people who are in continuous, low-level, entirely wordless communication across the shared space of a public event, communicating in the specific private language of people who know each other well enough that significant things can be said with nothing more than a look, and the quality of a response to a look, and the micro-expression of a person who has registered being loved in a room full of people who do not know they are watching something private. The awards night context matters enormously here, and deserves its own examination because the setting is not incidental to what the evening revealed. Awards events in the Korean entertainment industry are high-pressure social environments that require the professionals who attend them to maintain a continuous and fairly demanding performance of collegial warmth and professional engagement. Everyone in those rooms is managing their public image with a degree of conscious effort. Everyone is aware of cameras and industry observers and the social significance of how they are seen to relate to their colleagues. The professional demands of that specific environment are not trivial, and they apply equally to Lee Minho and Song Hye-kyo as they apply to everyone else present. Within that environment, the sustained, involuntary, repeatedly surfacing quality of Lee Minho's attention toward his wife is even more significant than it would be in a lower-pressure context. In an environment that is specifically designed to keep professional attention directed toward professional matters, his attention kept escaping toward her. The managed surface of awards night conduct kept being interrupted by something that the managed surface could not fully contain, which was the simple, apparently ungovernable fact of his awareness of her in the room and what that awareness did to his face. The professional performance was happening. The industry obligations were being met. And underneath all of it, running continuously and surfacing repeatedly in ways he was not always managing, was the private reality of a man attending a formal public event in the company of his wife and being visibly, sweetly, entirely unable to treat her presence as just another element of the evening's landscape. The specific moments when the two of them were in the same frame at the event have generated the most detailed analysis and the most emotional fan response, and it is not difficult to understand why when you examine what those moments contain. They were not in the same frame frequently. Both of them were navigating the event's social obligations, and those obligations kept them in different parts of the room for significant stretches of the evening. But the moments when they were proximate, when the physical geography of the event brought them into shared frames and shared conversational space, have the specific quality that Minho fans have been learning to recognize across years of observation. They have the quality of two people who are entirely comfortable with each other in a way that does not require management and does not require performance. In the midst of an environment saturated with professional management and professional performance, their shared frames have a different texture. An ease that is not practiced or produced but simply present. The ease of people who have spent enough time together that shared physical space requires no navigation because it has become entirely familiar. they stand near each other at the specific distance of people who have normalized proximity. They turn toward each other in conversation with a specific angle of people who are not deciding how to position themselves, but whose bodies have developed a default orientation toward each other that does not require conscious direction. One of the photographs taken during such a proximate moment has been identified by the community as the definitive image of the evening, and it is not the most dramatic image available. It is not the involuntary smile captured at her arrival. It is not the extended watching caught midway through the event. It is a quieter image. A moment where both of them are listening to something happening elsewhere in the room and are therefore both, briefly, directed outward rather than toward each other. But Lee Minho's hand in this image is at the small of Song Hye-kyo's back, not making a statement, not performing partnership for the room. Simply there, in the completely automatic way of a hand that goes to a specific geography without requiring instruction because it has been there enough times that it knows the way, placed with the unconscious ease of something that has become a habit of care. Song Hye-kyo in this image is not acknowledging the hand. She is directed outward, listening to whatever is drawing her attention, entirely at ease in the way of someone who is used to the hand being there and has incorporated its presence into her baseline sense of what it feels like to be herself in a room. The hand is not news to her. It is simply part of the landscape of being in this specific person's company. And that mutual ordinariness of the gesture, his automatic giving of it and her comfortable receiving of it, is the most intimate thing in an evening full of intimate documented moments because it is the most thoroughly domesticated. It is the hand of a long marriage finding its habitual place on a body it knows as well as its own. What this awards night has added to the cumulative Minho documentary record is something that no single previous event has provided in quite the same form. Previous events have given individual moments, glances, proximity, unguarded expressions caught in isolation. What this evening provided was duration, a sustained multi-hour sequence of evidence across an entire event that shows not the isolated beautiful moment but the continuous, uninterrupted, hour-after-hour reality of how Lee Minho relates to his wife in shared public space. And the picture that duration provides is qualitatively different from what any individual moment could give because it shows not the exception but the rule. Not the rare unguarded instant but the consistent, ongoing, apparently habitual fact of a man who cannot be in a room with his wife without that fact being the most significant thing about the room. He could not stop looking at her. Not because the evening presented unusual reasons to look. Not because Song Hye-kyo was doing anything designed to draw his attention. But because this is apparently what Lee Minho does when Song Hye-kyo is in the room. Because his attention returns to her with the regularity of something that has found its resting point, and keeps returning to it across the distractions and demands and professional obligations of even a high-profile industry evening. Because she is where his eyes go when they are not being specifically required to go somewhere else. Because she is, in the most literal and most profound sense, where he looks. The Minho community has been handed something extraordinary tonight, and it deserves to be recognized for what it actually is. Not just the content of a single evening, not just another beautiful documented moment to add to the catalog, but confirmation of something the community has always understood about this relationship from the inside of following it. The love is not occasional. It is not reserved for dramatic moments or significant occasions or the rare circumstances that generate footage worth analyzing. It is continuous. It is present in the ordinary, sustained, unremarkable texture of a public evening attended by a man who loves his wife and cannot consistently hide that fact across the hours of a shared room. Not because he is careless but because what he feels is simply larger than his management systems most of the time. That is what the community has always known was true. And this awards night, across hours of footage and photographs and the accounts of people who were present and witnessed the whole thing, has provided its most extensive and most complete confirmation yet. Go to the comments right now and tell us the moment in this awards night footage that hit you hardest. Tell us what Lee Minho's face did to you the first time you watched the arrival footage. Tell us whether you have ever looked at someone the way he looked at her across that room and what that felt like. Like this video, share it with every Minho fan you know, and subscribe because if an awards night produces this quality and quantity of Minho evidence just by virtue of putting these two people in the same room together, every upcoming event on their respective schedules is going to give this community something to talk about for a very long time. Stay close. Stay subscribe. This story is nowhere near finished, and every new chapter is more beautiful than the last.